for this particular webinar. And I'm really thankful to Pine Biotech for accepting this thing for this talk, the introductory webinar. And I would like to say that it's really great to have you amongst us. And we know that you are wonderful people who are working wonderfully in the field of bioinformatics. And I know that the students, they are going to learn a lot from what you are presenting today, and definitely from the internship and the projects and the different modules that you are going to present with us. You are going to tell the students and they are going to learn the maximum out of it, and definitely they can take the opportunity to learn more in this area from Pine Biotech. We are really privileged to have signed this MOU with Pine Biotech, and I would like to say that it's really a great occasion for not just for us, but for the students, that they would be hearing from the people who are actually working in the area of bioinformatics. So it would have been great if our director would have been here, but I would like to say sorry from his side because of some important thing. He was not able to join us, and he's actually having some other bookings there, and he was not able to be a part of this webinar. So I say a sorry from his side. Due to some unprecedented events, he was not able to come for this webinar. So I welcome you all. I welcome Mr. Dr. Mohit. I welcome Sonalika for accepting this thing and giving an introductory webinar about Pine Biotech, and basically introducing the students about the different aspects of bioinformatics that is being undertaken by Pine Biotech. So I welcome Dr. Mohit. It's all over to you, Dr. Mohit. Thank you for accepting our request for this webinar on short notice. Within 3 days, you were able to prepare for this and do all the technicalities, and you were ready with it. Thank you. Thank you, and welcome, sir.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nidhi. And it's good to have all of you. And we are really looking forward for today's session. And we've been planning to do this for a while. And it's great to have also Dr. Era, Dr. Sanket, and Dr. Vijay with us here, along with the students. So I'd like to now invite Ms. Sonalika first to introduce our company, and then we would go through these step-by-step process, making things easier to understand, and so that all of us can enjoy today's session. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nidhi and Dr. Mohit. So I welcome you all to the orientation session for Omics Logic, Amity University. Today is the first official session after the collaboration between Amity University, Jaipur and Pine Biotech, where the objectives of the collaboration is to increase the awareness of biology as data science to address the urgent need to encourage, train, and mentor people to leverage available public domain datasets and tools to explore the world of biology. So my name is Sonalika Ray, and I am the Omics Logic Community Manager, and I'm responsible for daily interaction with thousands of users that are a part of our bioinformatics community managed by Pine Biotech. So before we start with today's talk, I would like to introduce us. We are a US-based bioinformatics company who is working with multiple academic and commercial collaborators to develop easy-to-use analytical tools, and our mission is to make bioinformatics more accessible. Omics Logic research-based training programs are a result of close collaboration between Pine Biotech and numerous academic institutions that have participated in content evaluation, curriculum review, and project design. Omics Logic is an international program that is running in 5 different regions with over 10,000 users around the world. And due to this fast growth, our team is working with local and regional coordinators that are helping refine the local program logistics and leverage our online training resources, adapting them to the needs of students and researchers around the world. Omics Logic programs, they follow a project-based learning approach, using research-grade tools to analyze data from top peer-reviewed journals. Omics Logic training has been completed by participants from 162 countries in over 300 workshops for 6 different specialization tracks, being oncology, infectious diseases, precision medicine, neuroscience, data science for biomedical data, and also comprehensive training on omics data analysis. I'm honored to have been working with a team that has collectively an amazing experience in this area, including the other co-founders of the company as well. Dr. Alfred Tauber, who comes from a medical background with an expertise in oncology, immunology, and biochemistry of inflammation. One of these major projects is the establishment of the Tauber Bioinformatics Research Center, which has been at the core of what we do. Dr. Leonid Brodsky is the director of Tauber Bioinformatics Research Center and is an expert in bioinformatics and biostatistics. Our platform is the hard work by some of the people mentioned here on the right. Julia Panner, who is an expert bioinformatician and has helped prepare many of the materials that we would be using. Avi Titovsky, who is a computer scientist and leads the development of the T-Bioinfo platform that we will use. Dr. Harpreet, she has an expertise in the application of statistical machine learning techniques on biomedical data and the development of prediction tools and databases. And she looks after the curriculum development, bioinformatics, and data science course development as well. Dr. Mohit Mazumdar is an experienced bioinformatician with multiple publications in peer-reviewed journals and collaborations in industry and academia. And over the past several years, he has been developing collaborations with universities as a mentor and project lead for Omics Logic Training and Research Fellowship. Dr. Raghavendran has an expertise in the field of multi-omics, bioinformatics, and data science, and is working on various projects as a research consultant and mentor. As students embark on their professional journey with freshly completed degrees, they often wonder how professional life will be different from studies. Many prepare for this moment in advance, exploring possibilities to work in an area of interest through internships and research fellowships during their studies. Amity University Jaipur recognizes the need to enable students to participate in such meaningful experiences early on, leading to a pursuit of collaborations with industry. As a result, there is a natural fit between Amity University Jaipur and Pine Biotech, a big data analytics company that is focused on bioinformatics and machine learning for biomedical data. As a result, Pine Biotech will work closely with Amity University Jaipur to develop a pipeline for students to get the training and apply their bioinformatics skills in research and industry projects as interns and research fellows with the company. This process starts with a program designed to introduce students from all around the backgrounds to the intersection of biology and data science, and we call it Omics Logic. Now, to discuss about the collaboration and the programs, I would like to pass on the stage to our mentors. It would be nice if the participants could mute themselves. Thank you. So we already heard from Dr. Nidhi. Now I would like to welcome Dr. Mohit Mazumdar, Director Partnerships and Project Mentor. Dr. Mazumdar has completed his PhD in computational biology and has been working with academia and industry to solve important research problems. In his current role, he is working with students and faculty and scientists who have keen interest to explore biological data to do research in bioinformatics and provide guidance and training. Over to you, Dr. Mohit.
Thank you, Sonalika, for this wonderful overview. So let me know if you can see.
Yes, sir, we can see your screen.
Okay, thank you. Okay, it's great to see you all. As I said, that we've been looking forward to meeting with you all and tell you about this amazing collaboration and the benefits of what we are going to do and how it is going to be advantageous for all of us today. Yeah. So in today's meeting, we are going to learn about the advantages that you will have while going through this internship program that we are designed and we will be talking about. So we will today first learn about the keywords that are used frequently in modern biology and biotechnology and generally in the healthcare world. Then we are going to learn about the Omics Logic Research Fellowship Program that is designed just for you, where we will get an overview of the steps, the different steps that we have to take and the points that you will earn, the certificates that you will gain, the certificates that you will get, and also the profile that you will create for yourself. Then we will talk about the most differentiating point or the factor that makes this experience really a unique and relevant for jobs and opportunities in this field. So I'm not just talking about bioinformatics, I'm talking about the application of bioinformatics in different areas of research. That could be microbiology, that could be biotechnology, that could be any of the life science fields. So for that, we will have the hands-on big data analysis platform that is developed for students, that is developed for clinicians, that is developed for beginners in computational biology to easily integrate this important aspect of their learning and develop work experience. So it's very important in that aspect because this entire platform, as you saw just recently, has been designed and developed by Tower Bioinformatics Research Center. They have experts, top experts around the world who came up and helped us with this collaboration. So after that, after we learn about that, so first we will learn about the keywords, then we will learn about the platforms, then we will showcase you the pathway that Sonalika was just talking about, that will take you through, developing different stages of this, developing through these different stages of the training, which is to address, individuals, then the group, or like it's a personalized project-based curriculum developed by top experts from the best universities, leading to development of noble projects with the help of expert mentors. And all of this process we have gone through several times, and we have almost been working with a large group of students in Amity University, Kolkata, and where we developed these different projects through this entire process. And also we have recently signed an MOU with also Amity University, Noida. So there will be hundreds of students and faculty who will be taking and going through this process. So let's start without wasting any more time. I'm really excited that you all are here today, and we are going to really learn something important, and maybe many of you will be interested to carry this forward. So about the keywords, so what is happening is that the technology, that is the new technology, is changing healthcare. And that's why we are all here, because what we are doing is that we are rapidly evolving within, and we are learning about these new technologies, and we are making these technologies available to all of you, to all of the student community through these different collaborations, unique collaborations that we have with your university. So one of such technology that I wanted to talk to you about is the next generation sequencing. So the next generation sequencing is a modern second revolution, spearheading an ever accelerating field, because it is generating a lot of information, a lot of in-depth data. And one of the reasons, like you being a biotechnology or a bioinformatics student, one of the things that you learn first is about all of those things: cell biology, molecular biology. You learn about different biotechnology techniques that enables us to learn about these different cellular organisms, learn about these different organisms or mechanisms that are causing healthcare issues, right? So how this is all related. So many people are like thinking bioinformatics to be entirely different. Bioinformatics is not at all different. It is a very integral part of all of this, because what we are doing in the end is that we are generating information. In the end, when you're doing experiments, in the end, when you're like learning things first, when you're doing experiments, you're getting information. And that information has to be properly presented so that it makes sense. So there's a lot of data out there, but there's a limited number of information. So this NGS technology, how it changed and revolutionized, we are going to talk about that in a little brief. But the NGS technology does perform innovative research in a variety of different areas. That area could be, biopharma or a pharma. We can learn about population genetics or genomics. That is like to learn about an entire geography or an entire population or a group of people. And then it has a huge application in agriculture. So that is there. It has huge application in forensic. It has huge application in also surveillance, such as water testing and all of that. So because now we are generating data from natural environment, and I'll talk about today technologies such as metagenomics and how it is like helping microbial technology to grow such rapidly that we are able to find so many new things and correlate and understand them in a deeper sense. So we will learn about these technologies in brief, and we will show you resources where you can go in much more depth and learn really and understand and apply. So let's start with some of the basic things. Like we have students here, and it would be great if you can also, like, guys, share like which year you are, which course you're taking, so that I understand that what all you're learning right now. Otherwise, like here, what we are going to talk about is that we are talking about, some of the basics, like how DNA information from DNA, protein, cell, tissue, system, all of this builds up like to a project. Then we are learning about different morphologies, topologies, and sequence similarity, molecular profiling. So all of this are like research that is really fascinating because it gives you something new to know about. You have an opportunity to find out something new. I think that itself is a lot of encouragement for anyone who is studying, learning, and experiencing this. So that would include application of key technologies that you have heard hearing all around, because now you are into that era where we are talking about deep learning, machine learning, artificial intelligence. So how all of this can make sense, and what can I do? Like if I don't know anything, if I am a person who is coming from a basic background and have learned and being learning whatever being taught to us in the universities, how do I go and approach and become a person who can develop skill sets or who can understand these keywords and interpret some of the things that we read? That is very important, I think, and that is some of the things that we are going to address in today's session. So in general, I would wanted to talk about bioinformatics, that as I was saying, that bioinformatics is not only now about a specific field, but from genetics, toxicology to mycology to radiobiology. These are some of the schools of these are some of the schools of branches of biology to specialize in. And out of many, bioinformatics is one of the intriguing field that enables you to identify, evaluate, and store and retrieve biological information. And being it is an interdisciplinary field of study, you get to learn about some of the other fields such as statistics. You get to learn about computer science. You get to learn about biology to develop software applications to understand biological data like DNA sequencing, protein analysis, evolutionary genetic analysis, all of that. So one of the challenges that we think the student faces to where to start from. Not only student, like student researchers, anyone who is learning biology and trying to get something good outcome out of it, like a job opportunity or like research opportunities. So where to start from? So how and what has changed? The thing that has changed over the years is that biology and data are now very close. Now biology can be seen as as data science, because there's so much data and information that is being easily generated. Before that, the generation of data was really difficult. There you would have to go through these typical experiments, and getting the right kind of answers from those experiments depends on a lot of infrastructure, a lot of money was required, and then the reproducibility was another factor. So now with these automated machines, now data generation is quite easy, and you have people who are like doing bench science and are generating a lot of information. But from bench science to data science, I mean, in the US, there is a 2.5-fold difference in the salary if you know data science also, if you know the aspects of bioinformatics also. And for doing job applications or for doing, higher education, these skill sets are really, really important at the same time because they are in demand. And why they are in demand? Because it's easy to generate data, but it is difficult to interpret the data. Now, I will tell you what is this big data, why we are talking about big data and why it is different. Because many of us don't know what is big data and how to differentiate between, because we cannot see it, like it does not appear in front of us. It is inside the computers, right? So what is big data? What makes big data big data? So there are 5 components that we describe that kind of classifies it to be a big data. First is volume, then it is variety, then it's value, then it's veracity, and then it's velocity. So we also have a good course that is a free introductory course, Introduction to Bioinformatics, which we'll be showcasing you in a while, which explains this into a much more detail that you can learn about. But to give you an overview, the first thing that I talked about was the volume, right? So volume means if the amount of data is big, huge. So one of the relevant example is a technology called transcriptomics or RNA-seq. I don't know if you have heard about it a lot or not, but RNA-seq technology generates gene expression data, and that data can be generated from anyone. So it can be generated from me. It can be generated from a patient who has certain disease. So when we are taking that information from a patient, that information is for a given point of time. So there is a consideration of, timeline. So stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, and then about that data at one point, at, like, for example, stage 1, you get data for 2 or 3 GB with tens and thousands of genes, millions of single nucleotide mutations or variations that are there when you compare. So just imagine how big this is. Like when we think about text files, not video files, but text files, you know how small text files are. You create a large document, it is just for 1 MB, just text. When I'm talking about in gigabytes and in megabytes. So just imagine the amount of text that it has in those files. So that's why it is a big data, and it is really difficult to analyze it just like that. You can't do it on your own system. You need an infrastructure for that. And that is where we are helping the community by bringing that infrastructure, by bringing these experiments to the student community, to the faculty community, so that they can do this, utilize this enormously growing data and make the maximum out of it by developing new projects, by working on cutting edge, translational projects. I'll come to that next later. But next, I would like to tell you a little bit about the history of genomics data, because I've been talking about this data, but you should know that how it all began. So it began with the discovery of DNA, right? So the structure and function of DNA was discovered almost 70 years ago, right? So since then, 50 years, it took us 50 years to get the Human Genome Project, to get the information about how we are made. In 2015, a lot of genome came in, like there was 1,000 genome project. So a lot of information we got. And since then, like there's 1,000 genome project, and now it is so much that I cannot even tell you like how much it is. So it all started from, Sanger, Mendel's discovery in 1980s, development of central dogma of biology in 1950s, and then understanding genetics. So this information that contains inside the DNA, it was only in 1970 that the science of genetics, we know, it truly started to thrive from the development of Sanger's chain termination method, the first machine which was developed in 1987. So we witnessed a fast and a dynamic expansion in genetics and genomics information in the last 20 years, because all of these technologies have evolved during that period. And then we have different machines, Illumina machines now, which are really available for very affordable prices. So the Human Genome Project was $3 billion, nonetheless, and maybe more. But now it is as less as, $800 to $100 between that you can get sequencing done. And then there are specific type of sequencing that are there. For example, exome, so just looking at the exons, and then full genome, and all of that technology is available. So whole genome sequencing, resequencing, and then de novo genome sequencing, transcriptomic sequencing, epigenomic studies. So what are all these things? Now let's learn a little bit about that. So one of the things as it happened is that the omics technologies were becoming cheaper and cheaper to explore the roles, the relationships, and the action of various types of molecules that makes up a cell of an organism. And we are talking now about also single cell technology, where we are learning about individual cells and how they behave. And that information is very critical also. So many of these omics data can be generated with this technology, which is called the next generation sequencing. And then this data shows detailed information about, genomics, about the variants that you see, the epigenomic regulations and the methylations and acetylation, all of that, and then gene and isoform expression. So this holistic information gives us really, in-depth understanding of a disease condition, of different types of conditions that are there. So now what is happening is that with this influx of data, biologists and clinicians, they need to use these technologies, data-driven technologies. So what we have created is not just this technology or to learn about this technology, but how to apply this technology. And that's why we, as I was telling you, that this is really a unique experience because it's a project-driven experience. It's not like, just learning about things, but working on it by doing hands-on. And all of this has been simplified to students from around the globe. So we have almost like 10,000 people who have gone through. That has really helped us to make it simpler for students at any level to take these training and go through and learn about these different technologies and apply them in real life. Now, about this OmicsLogic platform, I would just stop the sharing here, and then I'll share my screen and take you to the Tauber platform, which we discussed for a quick overview. And then we have a detailed demonstration by Dr. Harpreet. That would be like a hands-on session. Just a second, give me a second. And if there are any questions, guys, please put in the chat box and I'll be able to see them and answer those as well. Thank you. Is my screen visible?
Yes, sir, we can see the screen.
Perfect. So this is the platform that actually is what the core of what we do. And as Sonalika showed us, that Dr. Alfred Tauber and the group in Israel and US and UK, all of the people in different places has contributed in having this resource available to the scientific community, available to the students especially, and also to the faculty. So how it is helpful? It is like really, an easy place to browse around, because this entire platform is AI guided. And then you have all the tutorials and information in these specific keywords. So during this training and during this, doing research, we will be utilizing this platform a lot. And here we have several sections. So I told you about transcriptomics, I told you about genomics, I told you about RNA and DNA analysis, then metagenomics and how we can understand the information coming from the microbial world and their effect about that. And then we have specific section on mass spec and then cancer biology if someone is interested into learning more about these deadly diseases. Then we have structural biology, then data integration and modeling. So this is like the advanced stage when you're learning about these data types and learning about their how to analyze them. And then you come to this part where you do the mm, machine learning and multi-omics data integration. For microbiology and virology, there's a section which was developed in collaboration with UCSF, which helps us analyze more of virology aspects. COVID, we have a case study, a lot of case study on COVID, projects that we finished on COVID and other infectious diseases. So this is the overview of this platform that the students will be using, the faculty will be using for training as well as research. And now for training, we have all of this, like a lot of examples that Dr. Harpreet will show us in the next part of the session. But also, like, there are for research, yeah, obviously we use publicly available data and analyze all of that. So this was a quick overview, but now I will go back to the presentation and we will see that how, I mean, these different areas helps us to do different type of research, as well as like how we can how anyone can do this research and come up with their own research project. So I'll go to the next part of my presentation and I'll stop sharing and share my presentation again. Sonalika, is it visible, the presentation?
Yes, sir, it's visible.
All right, so I was telling you about, I told you about that, how do we use this technology? We have a wonderful platform where students go through this, understand the logic. So it's just many bioinformatics students especially, they come up with this question, and please ask your questions. They come up with this question that I want to develop my own pipeline, I want to develop my own pathway. All of that is possible, and we will tell you about that in the third part of the session, where Dr. Raghavendran will be talking about R and Python and how we are integrating this. But for you to start, or for anyone to start, it's important that you develop a logical understanding of why you do this, what is the why what we are getting out of this, and how this is important for the for scientific community or for the society, or why we are doing this research. So all of those are the first part where we are understanding all of this. And when I was telling you about that, there is a lot of opportunity that are there for students and faculty to now explore. That is the opportunity that is available as publicly available information. So what is that information? So NCBI itself has huge repositories, huge data sets, a large number of information. Every day they are submitting information, because when you're doing these experiments in your lab, and many of the labs around the world are very well funded, and they have all these instruments, they have all this money to carry out those experiments and generate big data. So they are generating this data and then depositing it on these public repositories where the data is growing, and we would need people who can analyze this sort of information, right? So where is this big data? I was telling you that we have places like PubMed, where you get information about different types of literature about this data. And one of the important aspect of learning about this data is also to learn about the literature that is associated with it. But again, doing it on your own is really challenging, because there's so much information that you get like overwhelmed and don't understand that which place to start with and how to go about it. And that's why we have the mentors here who are helping our students how to explore data, where to find your data, what kind of data is that, will that data be able to give you the answers that you're seeking, all of that. So that's where the mentorship is helpful, because otherwise it's kind of challenging to do it in a limited amount of time. And usually when you're doing a project, you would want to do it in 2 months, 3 months, or 6 months. So that's how these programs are planned and designed. So many big data repositories you can see on the screen that involves from virology to different cancer problems. So there is a database about this is Cosmic, which lists out the mutations that you can find, and then you can validate if that mutation is prevalent in a specific population or not. And those kind of studies can help you learn about specific problem in a specific area. You can look into the domain wise area, domain wise, like your state or something like that, and those can be also good research projects. So as I was telling you that for virology and all of that, it is there. Now, one of the important thing is to understand that why we should do this. Like, why am I asking you to do this? Because there is a need, and when there is a need, there's an opportunity, and that's why this is an opportunity, because there's a need. There's a gap between the abundance of available data and the understanding and the usefulness for it to treat diseases or to find solutions. That's why we need biotechnologists. That's why we need people from microbiology and other areas to understand this technology and use this technology, so that they can, because they know about it in very much detail, in depth. You're learning about this, what is DNA, what is protein, and how it works. So that basic understanding will take you to the next step. And with this modern technology, you can be you can complete do a complete sort of training that will take you to the next steps in your career. Now, about the specializations. So this entire process is divided into steps. I was telling you from the very beginning that we have steps here. Step one is to find yourself, make yourself available for this. Step two is to understand that what are the basics, what are the different types of technologies that you can learn, and what interests you the most. If it is about a disease, if it is about a mechanism, what interests you the most? You have to find out that, and then do a specialization. So the next part of this presentation is about those specializations that you hear about. So as I was telling you that biology is rapidly acquiring the characteristics of data science. Why it is so? Because we have millions of data points on genes, millions of data points on proteins and molecules. And these molecules and all of them are compiled, are placed in large libraries, like databases that you just saw. So analyzing this data will lead to more knowledge. Analyzing this data will lead to more understanding about living organisms, about human health, about biotechnology, about crops, about livestock, all of that. And how it is applied to different fields such as oncology, infectious diseases, neuroscience, agriculture is something that we will quickly go through now. So one of the application, and please do let me know if you need like a break or something, or if you have any questions. So in this part, what I wanted to tell you about is that how we are learning about viruses, how we are designing these vaccines, and how we are learning and doing all of these things so rapidly. One of the things that you have witnessed is all of the vaccines came out so early, it was a record. And all of that has been only possible because all of the scientists who are working from 1920s to 1900s till now have generated so much of data. And now if we are using that data, using that information along with the latest technologies that we just learned about right now. So in infectious disease research, when we are talking about microorganisms, what we do is that we want to study the pathogenic or the pathogen genomics and maybe the immune responses to explore the genomic diversity of pathogens in epidemics and pandemics, then understand how this happened. So you must have heard about a thing called zoonotic spillover, when how the COVID originated, how it spilled over to one organism to another. And then learning about evolutionary analysis, about understanding adaptation, how adaptation is working. So all of this, there's a lot of research that is going on, and we are actively involved in this research by utilizing the platform, by utilizing the research ideas coming from students and faculty, and then with data scientists and experts that we have and integrating them into a research project, research program, research training, and all of that. One of such example is this bioinformatics for infectious diseases. It's a research training that enables you to learn about infectious disease research by learning about the genomes, haplotypes, strains, sequencing, functional consequences, and then post-immune response, as I said, and learning about the pathogenicity and the immunity, and also surveillance. So also to mention that. Another example would be to understand how COVID, right? So by passing through the layers of immune defense and hijacking host cell machinery to replicate, right? These microorganisms, they wreak havoc and seemingly just to replicate. So to learn about their strategies, tools and tactics, we can study the sequences of genomic code enabled by we can learn about their genomic sequences. We have great labs in India, such as IGIB. And they have also like a lot of consortium. They have collected sequences from Indian population, over 54,000 sequences I've seen last, and it could be more. So we can do that. We can do that using the platform, using the by learning about how to do this, how to apply this technology, and to do apply this technology by easily accessible and highly accurate this RNA sequence, next generation sequencing technology. And then develop research projects. As I was telling you that we have several examples that are there on the Learn Omics Logic, which will be showcased by Sonalika in just a few seconds. And I'm sorry for this long overview. So we have West African Ebola outbreak 2014 to 2016 study. That's another simple study that you can do. And it tells you about all the details, like how it started, introduction, then there's materials and methods, and then there is results, and then there is discussion, and then there's quiz. So all of that are part of these different courses that we have. Then we have the SARS-CoV-2 genome and cell responses, and then how the microbiome is associated with disease and drug response. I was telling you about this like really innovative technology called metagenomics. It's a relatively new field. So metagenomics is a way to study microorganisms in their natural environment, which is one of the biggest benefit. So in this technology, we are dissecting community structures, exploring species richness, and then we are investigating the functional role about these microbial communities in many areas related to human health and also diseases, right? So metagenomics describes both as a set of research technique as well as research field. It's also it's a research technique. It is also a research field. So in metagenomic sequencing data analysis, what we are doing is that you can analyze microbiome composition. You can analyze the species diversity in a sample. And then in the specialization, you will learn about processing the 16S rRNA data with a pipeline called Data2. And then you will be able to visualize the operational taxonomic unit abundance table. So it's a lot. I mean, there's to learn in metagenomics and apply it to for genetic characterizations of organisms which are too small to visually identify and require computational method to make determination of how and where they are present, like their differential gene expression within a microbiome contributes to the cooperativity and permissive ecosystem. And then there are a lot of things that are there in this, fascinating field of metagenomics. And obviously, I would really like all of you to learn them at some point of time. So, I mean, this all information. So omics, I was talking about omics all this while. Protein, proteomics, non-genetic or like changes, epigenomics, and then transcriptomics is gene expression, and genomics is learning about the DNA sequences. So all of this, if you integrate, process, like all this information coming about maybe one particular type of disease or one particular type of individual, think about yourself. if you have information about all of this technology, and you have your own sample and you have collected all of this information, and you have now a tool to analyze that and what it means, what are the mutations you can profile that makes you vulnerable to things, all of this research coming every day about annotation of a specific gene and tells about a specific function. This can be found in Times of India to any research article. How you can do it yourself, it's so fascinating and so amazing. So this is what this entire integration is all about, and the platform also enables that sort of integration of different types of data for multi-omics integration of projects. For those can be mostly faculty driven projects. So another important aspect is precision medicine. We talk about precision medicine and we apply it in different areas of research, and especially like in cancer to understand mortalities and all of that. So after, I was telling you that after decades of research, now we are not giving one drug to all. We need personalized. As I was telling you that even our trainings are more personalized, because we understand that every student as a maybe is at a different level. Every student would have a different choice maybe to learn about different sort of technologies and have a different research interest. Similarly, not all drugs can fit to, not one drug can fit to all, right? We have to find ways for individuals. So this is all that precision medicine is all about. And I would want to now quickly conclude this part, where just to think about it as a very layman aspect, that when you go to a doctor with this information, what the doctor sees is the clinical data. That clinical data, what is the clinical data? You all know that what clinical data is. Let me give you some examples. Clinical data is temperature, what is your body temperature, what is your heart rate, and other things that can be calculated on the surface, can be seen on the surface. So these processes are, you can get them quickly, your age, your height, and then these are cheaply available and are covered by insurance also. So this is the information that usually what we give to the clinician to take a decision on what is wrong with us, or if we are facing some challenges, medical challenges. Now, I mean, the real story is below. Below, you get all the detailed information of why this is happening, what are the actual way or reasons of this, and in much more depth at a cellular level, at an atomic level, all of that. So at a cellular level, when you're getting this information and then when you're taking this decision, obviously you're bound to be more towards the right approach, maybe right type of diagnostics. So that's about precision medicine, and there are some applications in precision medicine that our team is being working with very actively. Dr. Harpreet will quickly talk about that, that how biomarkers, finding biomarkers is relevant, and how we can like use, like I was telling you, that a specific condition, if you know about it by a biomarker detection before, early detection, early diagnosis, then you solve a lot of problems. Like one of the biggest problems that people from stage 1 to go to like a stage where it's really difficult to heal them. So early diagnosis is really very, very important for any of such research. And then in our training, what we do is that we take data from different publications, as Sonalika was telling you. And in these different publications, what we do is that take data from cell line information. Then there are mouse models, which are patient-derived xenograft models, where the tissue is implemented or tumor is implanted in the mouse. And then we have the information from clinical trials and translational application. So this is also like how research goes, how a drug discovery pipeline goes. So people start from cell line experiments, then they check it to the xenograft models, and then they proceed for clinical trials and translational application. So here in Omics Logic, we also have projects where we have examples from each of these, and then apply it for data science and AI in healthcare. So as I was telling you, drug discovery is a project that is motivated by situation when there is no drug for a disease, or when an existing drug have a limited efficacy or severe toxicity. So that is where you envision that you need a drug. And then there are like AI technologies that has accelerated this entire drug discovery process. And that is something that we go through this training and help develop such skill sets by learning about all of this. Protein folding and structure prediction, you must have heard about AlphaFold, the Google DeepMind initiative. So we learn about that also in our sessions, that how this current changes has helped evolve us, make us evolve and take us to the next step, closer to drug discovery, closer to finding solutions. So learning about the problems and then finding solutions. So I first told you about learning about the problems by using those technologies, and then finding solution by using technologies. So this is why bioinformatics and data-driven science perhaps is very important for all of you to learn for a bright career, for a bright next steps. So the future of medicine obviously lies in the next generation, the generation that is learning about this technology right now, and apply them and get better decisions, and do welfare to the humankind. And similarly, not just in on Earth, but also we need this sort of technology in space, because space life is really difficult, and there we have a lot of more challenges like radiation, address the understanding of about the origin, and then extreme conditions, then the health of astronauts. So these are different type of specializations that we are doing and working on. And there are different case studies where we've seen that AI and this data driven technologies have got the approval and are in practice. So it is really happening from MIT to MET. I think all of you, we are capable of developing and doing something greater, but we do have to take a path one step at a time. And to tell you about more about this one steps and their benefits, now I'd like to invite Sonalika, who will take you to the first step. And then there are different steps like you can see on the screen, like precision medicine, population health, agriculture. All of this information you will get to learn. So there's a lot of confusion when all of this. Like I started off as a bioinformatician. I did my BSc masters from Jamia, and then I did my PhD from JNU. And I realized that it took me a lot of time to understand that how things are availability, resources, and all of that. So we have put together all of these resources in one place so that you can do this training in a short period of time and get some great outcomes out of it. So for the next step, I would like to invite, like Sonalika is already sharing her screen, and take you through the steps that would help you take on some of the challenges of 20th century. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mohit. So this is the page that we have tried to design and put together everything so that things are very much easy for you to understand and get started. So I'll just take you through this page step by step. And also I'm sharing with you one of the registrations form that you are supposed to fill up, and also the page in the chat box so that you can go through yourself. So here is the page where we have tried to put everything together. Now, how do you get started? So let's go through the first step. And the first step is to get yourself registered on the portal. The link to the portal I'll just share in the chat box, and it would be nice if you all can register yourself now, because that would help you to go ahead with us along with the exercises further. So once you go to the portal, it's learn.omicslogic.com. All you need to do is just create a free sign up account. And once you are done, please let me know in the chat box by either sending in a 1 or a yes. So I'll sign in with you all together. Just click on the login button. You will get an option either to create your account by typing in your mail ID and by creating a password, Or you can also connect your social accounts and log in via your, let's say, Gmail account or so. Expecting you all to go with me along and just sign up on the portal and just send in a 1 or a yes maybe in the chat box. Can I get some response in the chat box? Are you all signing up? And after completing your sign up, you need to update your profile. So let's take a minute or two for you to sign up easily. Those who are on their phones, maybe they can also open up the site that is learn.omicslogic.com and create your account via phone itself. Ghazal and Spandan, have you created your account on the portal? So creating the account is going to help you go through further in the session. We will be doing up some few introductory sessions right away, and we'll practice some of the things here today. So that's going to help you out. Can I know in the chat box if you all are able to sign up or not? Waiting for the responses. Dr. Mohit, am I audible? I can't get any response. Thank you so much, Ghazal.
Yes, you are audible, Sonalika.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay, so Ritika, Asif, and Ghazal have signed up. Now, Ritika, Asif, and Ghazal, after signing up, you need to click on your mail ID and then you will be redirected to your profile tab. Now, once here on the profile tab, you have to update your profile by updating a profile picture. Also, connect your social accounts, connect your Facebook, LinkedIn, or Instagram account. Maybe if you are on Twitter, you can add that as well. And also add a brief bio about yourself. This brief bio could include your research interests. I see some more responses. It's good that Yash has also signed up. Asif has also signed up. Okay, what about others? Please make sure that you also update your profile. If you are right now on your phone, you can update your profile later. But it's very important to have an updated profile because we do monitor the profiles and also we feature profiles on social media accounts based on your progress. So definitely, if you are doing good, we are going to feature you on our social media handles with your progress. I'll give you all 2 more minutes to sign up. Good Spondan that you have signed up. And also those who have completed their sign up, they can quickly just fill out the registration form. So we have a Slack channel and we would be communicating via the Slack channel. So here is the link to the form. You can just fill out the form and I'll also share the link to the Slack channel. You can find an invitation on your Gmail inbox for joining the Slack channels. Good, Rohan, that you have signed up. And also, it would be really nice to listen to you all about what do you think, what we discussed today. It would be nice to be more interactive. And what are your thoughts? How would you like to add something to the research field in big data analytics? And what do you want to work on, or any of the thoughts that you would like to share? It's an open stage for everyone. So you can raise your hands or chat in the or just type in the chat box and let us know. It would be nice to listen to you all. What do you all think and how you all want to proceed further? Okay, so that's it. We have just these sign-ups. Yamini, Yash, Yugansh, Vibhuti, Toeshi, Tanya. I see Kevin was on time. Have you signed up, Kevin? Good, Apurva, that you have signed up. And also, are you updating your profiles right now? Okay, so now let's go further. I hope you all have the portal link, and if you're not able to sign up now, then you might sign up later. And also make sure that you all have an updated profile. So the first step is that you have to register yourself and then you have to update your profile. Now on the profile tab itself, whatever course you get started with or are going through, you can find your progress here itself. And once these courses are complete, then you will be able to get the certificates on the profile tab. You can simply download your certificate and share it on your LinkedIn profile for others to see your achievement too. And also for every course that you complete, you are going to get some points. And once you cross the 10,000 point mark, you will get the level of an expert. And also you would be able to get started with your own research project. Now going to the step 2, the step 2 is to complete the basic training. Now we have divided this basic training into 3 modules. The first module is the basic training module, and then we have the intermediate training module and the specialized training module. So just to get started with, in the basic training modules, we have 3 of the courses that we recommend to all of you to get started with. I would be just briefly discussing about these courses that we have recommended to you all. And I would be taking up introduction to bioinformatics and bytes and molecules at first, and then we would be discussing about the third course towards the end of the session. Okay, so the first course that is Introduction to Bioinformatics. So as Dr. Mohit said very correctly, that bioinformatics is integrated actually in each and every field. So a biotechnologist might feel that what and why should they get into bioinformatics or learn about this field. But actually, the role of bioinformatics is in each and every field right now, as in the data that is being generated in the labs or the industries through the wet lab experiments has to be definitely sequenced and analyzed using the computational methods. So it's very important for every researcher, whether they are from a wet lab or from a dry lab, to actually know about the bioinformatics methodologies and have the skill set in their hand if they want to get along with the recent trends and work in this modern technological world, right? So this particular course, Introduction to Bioinformatics, will just get you started with bioinformatics and have that understanding to know what bioinformatics is, what is the role of bioinformatics in healthcare, and how it could be applied to various sectors, right? So this is a very basic and a very introductory course work that we recommend you all to just get started with. This course will just take you a few hours to complete, and you will have a great understanding of bioinformatics after completing this course. And now the second course that we recommend is Bytes and Molecules. So we have put together an introductory course covering each and every field of omics and data science as well. So this particular course, Bytes and Molecules, has lessons from various omics fields and data science, and is going to give you just an understanding of these different fields if you're not aware of, or even if you are aware of, then how you could work on these different sorts of fields and work on a research project or solve a research problem. So let me just quickly take you through each and every lesson so that you don't face any of the issues while going through the lessons at your end. So here, these are the very first four lessons are very introductory to just give you an understanding of bytes and molecules, what is citizen science, then what are what is the role of molecules in the data world, and also you will understand the code of life. Now, what is code of life? It's actually about genetic code. So you're going to understand about that here as well. And then we have a lesson on protein structure and function that is going to just give you an insight about how the protein structure and function could be understood or worked upon computationally, and learn beautiful insights about these sites that you might have definitely heard about, and how bioinformatics tools could be used to visualize these protein structures and work with them. And then the next lesson, Introduction to Genomics, is going to give you an idea how the genomes, or let's say the sequences, could be aligned, looked for the mutations, and how you can carry out the phylogenetic analysis further and analyze this particular genome. As the genome is large, yes, it's definitely large, it's huge, but just the some part of the genome makes sense. You all might have learned about that. So how that some part of the genome could be made, could make sense, and how you could analyze it in the perfect manner is what you're going to learn from this lesson. The various ways that could be used to actually interpret this particular genome properly. And then the next lesson is Introduction to Transcriptomics, where you are going to understand what is a transcriptome, first of all, and then how do you study this particular transcriptome, and why is actually the analysis of a transcript or a transcriptome important to look for the differentially expressed genes that could lead to a disorder or a disease or a condition that could be fatal, and how looking at these differentially expressed genes you could come up with a therapeutic approach or design a more better therapeutic approach that could be beneficial for the diseased patient, right? And then metagenomics, Dr. Mohit did share a lot about the metagenomics already. So this particular lesson is going to give you an introduction about metagenomics, how the metagenomic sequencing data could actually help you work with. So what are the various methodologies that could be used to analyze this metagenomic sequencing data and interpret biological insights. And then you have the very introductory lesson on bioinformatics and precision medicine. So what we recommend is basically that you all just take up all of these introductory lessons to just get some insight and then decide what you would want to work on further. So coming back to bioinformatics and precision medicine, here you are going to understand the role of bioinformatics, first of all, in precision medicine. Now, what is precision medicine was wonderfully explained by Sir as well. So now the trend of precision medicine or personalized medicine is definitely going to be bloomed in future, as now with advances in technology, more cheaper devices or technologies are coming up, which could make the precision medicine come into reality and work easily, right? So having a knowledge of the precision medicine field is definitely going to add a lot. So here in this lesson, you will just have that understanding how bioinformatics could be used for precision medicine, what are the various algorithms or the techniques or the methodologies that could be used effectively in this field. And then we have the very interesting lesson space omics. We also have a program going on right now, which would be ended soon on space omics itself. So first, I would actually, first of all, like to tell you all that Omics Logic has come up with the Space Omics course. That's the world's first Space Omics course that we are having with us. So it has been observed that astronauts do face a lot of health issues. It could be related to their health, like reducing the bone density, or reduce our hair loss, or a lot of DNA damage, right? So what are the reasons behind an astronaut facing these many issues? And also the last time, like there were some samples that were obtained from the space, right? So there were twin brothers about whom you are going to learn in this lesson, who went to space and also found a sample which was later on analyzed, and it was found that there was actually a metagenomic data, genomic data as well in those samples. So I won't be just discussing this particular thing right now, but to add to your interest, you can definitely take up this lesson and learn about those theories that I just mentioned in greater detail, because that's very interesting. So let's keep your curiosity here. You can just go through this lesson and learn more about why space omics came into existence, why scientists are showing so much of interest, especially NASA. Why NASA is showing so much of interest to understand the omics data in space, right? And then we have an introductory lesson on R. So we do know the role of R and Python. R and Python languages are actually the mainstream languages that are in demand by a lot many companies and a lot many fields. So now you will find a lot of resources where you can learn about R, you can learn about Python, but to get that bioinformatics aspect for R or Python, you need a proper resource. So this is where you can go through the R and the Python lessons and learn how R or Python could be used to analyze the biomedical data that we're talking about. So you will be able to get the code here. And the best thing is that you can also practice the codes here on the portal itself. You need not download RStudio or Jupyter Notebooks. You can directly execute your code on the portal and get your results, and also look for the errors here. So that was all that I wanted to discuss about these very beautiful two introductory courses that we all would want you all to get started with, and then we will proceed further. Now, what are the further next steps that we would be proceeding with? For that, I would like to give the stage to Dr. Mohit.
Yeah, thank you, Sonalika, for this insights. And I think many of the students have already signed up. And all of those who have not, I would encourage those people who have signed up to ask their colleagues to also sign up. And we will be sharing this recording of the session to all of you, to the faculty, Dr. Nidhi. And you can ask her to get the session recording for any other insights that you have missed. So next, I would like to quickly invite Dr. Harpreet to tell her about herself. She's one of the mentors of the Omics Logic program. And after that, Dr. Raghavendran to quickly introduce, and then we will guide you towards the end of the session.
Thank you, Dr. Mohit. Let me share my screen. Hello, everyone. My name is Harpreet Kaur, and I have a PhD in bioinformatics. In my current role, I'm curriculum developer and research consultant. I am mentoring number of research fellows and working with international collaborators in various research projects based on NGS data from biomedical. So let me first give you the glimpse of the research, my research background, and how bioinformatics can be used on biomedical data to drive significant meaning, maybe in the form of biomarkers, by taking some examples from my PhD projects and some of the projects that are completed by our research fellows. So my PhD was in the area of cancer genomics, specifically liver cancer. When I went through the literature, I found some of the major challenges associated with the liver cancer. Like liver cancer is often misdiagnosed or detected too late for an effective treatment. Another factor that contributes to its poor prognosis is the frequent reoccurrence of tumor after the treatment. So keeping these concerns in mind, so I have worked on a number of the projects, some of the projects that let me show you, where I have used publicly available data and applied various bioinformatics techniques to identify important biomarkers. For example, in the first project, we used large-scale transcriptomics data to identify diagnostic biomarker panel hepatocellular carcinoma. So in this study, we used nearly 30 data sets which were taken from publicly available repositories like GEO and TCGA. And overall, these 30 data sets include 4,000 samples and to elucidate transcriptomics biomarker panel for the diagnosis and the prognosis of the liver cancers, employing various statistical and bioinformatics methods. So in the next project, we use transcriptomics data to scrutinize the diagnostic biomarker panel for the cholangiocarcinoma, which is another major liver malignancy, which is derived from cell lining the bile duct. So in this study, we used nearly 9 data sets containing 350 cholangiocarcinoma, 133 adjacent non-tumorous, 90 hepatocellular samples to scrutinize cholangiocarcinoma specific transcriptomics biomarker, implementing number of data mining techniques like random forest, SVM, extra tree, logistic regression, etc. Then in the next project, we focused on the prognosis of the liver cancer. So here we use transcriptomics and methylation data to identify biomarker panel for the stage classification of hepatocellular carcinoma. So in this study, we use TCGA data of 350 samples, which include early and the late stage, and elucidate 51 features that include 30 RNA transcript and 21 methylation CpG sites using various bioinformatics or machine learning techniques. In this particular study, a prediction model based on the naive Bayes, where we employed 51 hybrid features able to discriminate early and the late stage samples with nearly 79% accuracy. So in the last part, we focused on identification of multi-omic signature that can stratify low reoccurrence and high reoccurrence groups of SCC patients. So here we identify 90 RNA transcripts, 50 miRNA, 50 methylation, and 4 integrative features to stratify survival risk groups, particularly reoccurrence survival risk groups. Now, let me give you a glimpse of some of the projects completed by a research fellow, which usually worked on various areas. For example, first, Miss Simet Dolaner. She's an undergraduate student from the Turkey, completed her research project entitled Long Non-Coding RNA as a Therapeutic Target in Chronic Lymphocytic Leukemia using publicly available data and implementing various bioinformatics tools that are integrated on T-Bioinfo server, which Dr. Mohit has just shown you. Then Ms. Pooja Parekh has completed her research project entitled Identification of Biomarker to Differentiate between Neural Stem Cell and Glioblastoma, employing various bioinformatics techniques on publicly available data. Then apart from oncology, so then we have a research fellow completed their research projects in various other fields, like Ms. Rutvi Vaja has completed her project in the field of neuroscience. So she has completed her project entitled In Silico Analysis of Transcriptomic Profiles and an Affected Biological Pathway in Multiple Sclerosis. Then already Dr. Mohit was talking about spaceomics. So then here one of the projects completed by Dilara Dikane, which is related to spaceomics. So she completed her project in the field of spaceomics as well as metagenomics entitled Radiation 3 to Human in Space, an alternative approach with probiotics using metagenomics and various bioinformatics techniques. Then apart from neuroscience and oncology, then Mr. Supantha Day has completed his project in the field of infectious disease, where he worked on the project analysis of gene expression profiles to study malaria vaccine dose efficacy and immune response modulation using transcriptomics data of the patient. So then we have also completed a project with the faculty from the Ghana for haplotype variants of Plasmodium falciparum AMA1 analysis based on the genomics data. So then apart from master's, graduate or PhD or postdoctoral student, then we also worked with some of the research fellows who are just high school students. So here I'm just showing work from two of the research fellow. One is Miss Netra. She has completed her project entitled Effect of Onset of Menopause on the Transcriptomics Profile of Aging Female Brain. Then Mr. Andres has completed his project in the field of amyloid beta-induced neutrophil activation, provide a link between two pathological hallmarks of the Alzheimer's disease. So my major research interest lies in the cancer genomics. Besides, I'm also interested and I have worked in the field of infectious disease, neuroscience, machine learning. So far, we already talk about the application of the bioinformatics in various biomedical fields. So this program gives you the opportunity to apply bioinformatics tool, even if you don't have any bioinformatics or programming skills. So now let me give you the glimpse, or just let me demonstrate to you how we can apply actually bioinformatics methods on a biomedical data by taking simple example of the PDX project. So now before going into the project, let me just introduce what is PDX and what is this data set about. So there was a publication published in the year 2016 in the journal OncoTarget, where researchers explored a whole transcriptomic profile of patient-derived xenograft model as a tool to identify both tumor and stromal specific biomarkers. So in this study, authors investigated RNA-seq as a hypothesis-free tool to generate independent tumor and stromal biomarkers and explored tumor-stroma interactions by exploiting human murine compartment specificity of the patient-derived xenograft or PDX. So now let's first understand what are the PDX models. So PDX models are generated when a fresh tumor tissue obtained directly from the patient is implanted into the immune deficient mice. So as such, these PDX models are usually maintain histological, clinical, molecular characteristics of the original patient while they remain biological stable. Since PDX models are more closely resemble and recapitulate tumor growth in human than standard in vitro cell line or cell line xenograft approaches, so they remain a key experimental platform for preclinical drug development or various types of precision medicine models. So here the data set that we are going to explore or I'm going to demonstrate, it contains two types of the breast cancer subtype. One is ER positive and triple negative. Now, what we mean by ER positive means it is estrogen receptor positive. So usually ER positive is identified by the presence of an estrogen receptor on its cell membrane. Then another breast cancer subtype in this data include triple negative sample. So triple negative breast cancer has none of the three common receptor on its membrane. And this is one of the difference which actually makes triple negative very aggressive subtype, while ER positive is still more treatable subtype of the breast cancer. Now let me show you like where we can find raw as well as processed data and how we can process if we have raw data. So let me first take you to the one of the platform where we can find raw data, that is SRA, which is Sequence Read Archive. So here you can find actually raw RNA-seq data. So for example, here we have the data for the PDX model for all the sample. If you look at each of these files, even just file for single sample, it is like 11 GB, 10 GB, 13 GB. So if you have 100 sample, obviously you will face very difficulty to even store this data and forget about the analysis, because for the analysis, you also need very good RAM on your system, right? So how we can handle such a big data? So then to handle these kind of data, what we need to do, we can actually need not to download complete data. So we just need to download simply a simple file where we have IDs of all these samples. So we can do this by simply run info and create this file. So once we have just IDs of these samples, we have already used this IDs, this information on the server itself. So where we already uploaded this data. So I'm just going to show you like how we can actually run this or process this data. So just okay. So just give me a second. Okay, so just let me. So this is the T-Banfo server where we can actually analyze raw as well as the processed data. So first I'm just going to demonstrate to you, even if you don't have any bioinformatics skills, it's not like you cannot analyze such kind of data. So here on this platform, I'm giving you an example of this PDX project. As Dr. Mohit already shown you, like on this T-Banfo server, you can actually analyze various type of data, including transcriptomics. Then if you can analyze genomics data, you can also analyze structural biology data or various types of, you can also implement various data mining or machine learning techniques. So first, how we can process actually raw data. So here I'm taking the example of PDX project. So here once we have already downloaded the IDs of our raw data, we can actually directly upload those IDs using SRA run table. So we have already uploaded in this example project. What we can do, so when we actually just going to click on start, so here you will find like input file. So where we have already provided reference, then these are the links. So links or the URL. So we already uploaded the IDs. So we can just by clicking on OK, we just able to access that data. Now here you will find various subsections within each pipeline. So how and which step is required for that, you need to go through transcriptomics course, genomics course, depending upon what analysis that you want to do. So here the next step which is getting highlighted first under the pre-processing. So here the first step which is getting highlighted, Tremomatic. So what this Tremomatic does, so usually in the raw data we have FASTQ file. FASTQ means we have raw sequencing data. So when we actually have raw sequencing data, we need to delete any technical sequences. So for example, in RNA-seq, when we do library preparation, we add the adapters. So here with the Tremomatic, we will able to remove those adapters. Then the next step which is getting highlighted, that is PCR clean. So what this PCR clean will do, that it will remove the PCR duplicates that were generated during the library preparation. So why we need to do or remove PCR duplicate? Mainly to get the clean reads. Otherwise, PCR duplicates will actually it will interfere with the actual interpretation of your analysis. So once you have your clean reads. Next, how you are going to align your reads on reference genome. So here number of different tools get highlighted. For example, Butai2G and Butai2T. So these are the mapping algorithm or the alignment algorithm. So you can read about like what these algorithms or which algorithm we need to use. You can learn all much details there itself in transcriptomics course. Otherwise, here even we are providing you link to the original publication. So once this Butai2D, what it does, it aligns your reads on reference transcriptome, because here our goal is to generate gene expression table from raw sequencing data. So then once you're able to align your reads on reference transcriptome, next, how we can quantify which gene has expressed or how much it was expressed. So we can use by using various expression labels. So there are a number of different algorithms. So right now we are using RSCM. So this RSCM, so you can actually always read about it. Here we also giving you a bit introduction, like RSCM is RNA-seq using expectation maximization algorithm. And then if you want to perform differential gene expression analysis at this step, you can, but I don't recommend, because you also, before performing downstream analysis, you need to identify like what are the outliers. So you can skip this step, you can end the pipeline. So once your pipeline get completed, this is an example pipeline. So it is like already this pipeline was done, so it won't take time, right? But when you are running your pipeline on your data, so at that point of time, it usually takes 1 or 2 days, depending upon how many samples you have. If you have very large number of samples, it can take a week. If you are dealing with 100 or 200 samples, if you're dealing with 10 or 15 samples, maybe it will be finished within 1 day. Now you have various outputs. So let me show you, like, so this is the mapping stats. Just give me a second. So mapping stats will help you to understand which reads are good or not. So you can analyze that. Just give me a second to show you like what you actually get out of mapping stats. So here you will get like how much alignment for each read. For each sample, for example, 86% alignment. So usually if you have more than 80% or 90%, that is considered good alignment. If you have very low, like 60% or something, then it is not a good alignment. Maybe you need to change the reference genome. So then another output, that is, if you would have various output in terms of FPKM values, not filter, isoform. So you have various output of isoforms, as we know that they are derived from same transcript, right? So only the exons are different. So then, for example, this is the expression table. So let me first download this, and I have already downloaded this and I copied it here just to show you. Like now I have a simple table from, like, where I have in data in the TBs. Now I have a simple table which is easy to analyze, and now I can analyze this kind of data. Now what we have in this data, for example, here in the columns we have sample. This is ER, and then this is ER, some ID of the sample. Then triple negative sample. In the row we have genes, and here these are the ensemble IDs. And you will also learn what is ensemble IDs, entrance IDs, gene symbol when you are going through the transcriptomics course. If you are very much new to transcriptomics, or if you're already familiar with, then it is perfectly fine. So these are the genes. So now once we have this kind of gene expression table, we can actually start analyzing this kind of table. So now let me just show you. For example, I have taken one random gene, and this is the ID type of sample. So for example, now I just want to visualize this gene in simplest way. So we can actually draw simple bar plot just to understand how this gene is expressed, at least in the form of FPKM value in ER positive sample and triple negative. So once we have this kind of data, now we can easily explore this. Now, whenever we actually run any analysis, we need to explore the data, or we need to perform exploratory data analysis, and we need to perform normalization. So now let me show you how we can actually perform exploratory data analysis, or how we can normalize simply using various tools which are integrated on T-Bioinfo server. So for example, here under the data mining, you actually got various tools to perform various type of analysis. For example, in the utility, usually allow you to do various types of annotation, normalization, or pathway analysis. And then you can also apply supervised, unsupervised analysis, differential gene expression analysis. And for example, once we have that table, now how we can interpret what is in this data, what kind of pattern that we could have. So for example, let me just show you here the example pipeline. So this is utility pipeline. So here, once we have that gene expression table that I was showing you, so then we need to upload this table. Then we need to perform first normalization on our data to reduce any technical variation. And then we can perform various types of exploratory data analysis. Right now, I'm performing PCA, which is principal component analysis. And then we can end the pipeline. Now, let me show you like actually what we are going to get. So this is the Excel file I have all, because this is an example pipeline. So I can show you exactly what kind of output we can be able to obtain. So here we have, this is what the PCA results. So apart from that, even if you look at our pipeline, we also have, this is quantile normalized data. So you have also normalized data, you also have the PCA results. So now we can look at like what kind of patterns in our data. So if you look at here, these percentage, now this principal component generate new components, new variable. You can use these components to visualize your data, to understand what kind of pattern within your data. So for example, this is how we just able to explore this. I already labeled this. So for example, sorry. How we are going to label, and we are going to learn all this during this program. Right now, I'm just giving you demonstration like how exactly we are going to get these kind of results. Now, if you look at, we are ER positive, ER thymic, the nod mice here, both are the ERs, and these are the triple negative samples. So for example, here this sample completely distinct from rest of the sample. So we can say this is an outlier. So this is how we can perform very basic analysis. Similarly, we can identify important genes that can actually differentiate ER or triple negative samples, like using differential gene expression analysis, or we can also apply machine learning techniques. So this is like just a demonstration to show like what kind of analysis that you can perform. Some of them, just a two analysis that I have shown you. So this is very easy and anyone can use this. So now actually how this codes are working or analysis algorithms are working. So like how, if somebody willing to learn. So now I would like to pass this session to Dr. Raghvinder. So actually these codes are written in R and Python. So you can also, you will get also facility where you can learn about R and Python coding. So now I would like to invite Dr. Raghvinder. So Dr. Raghvinder, over to you. If you have any question, please post your query in the chat box. I'm happy to address your query.
Thank you very much, Dr. Harpreet. I hope I am audible to you, and I will right now share my screen. And thanks to all the participants for patiently listening to a lot of information. So I hope my presentation follows the trend and be as very informative as my predecessors. So I will start with a very brief introduction about myself and my research interests. So I'm a computational biologist by training. Is my video visible? Anyway, yeah, I think I got it right. Yes. So I am a computational biologist by training, and I specialize in subjects like multi-omics data analysis and data science methods in precision oncology and protein DNA structural bioinformatics. I completed my formal education in biophysics and bioinformatics and then graduated PhD in computational biology from Max Planck Institute, Germany. And then I worked on several projects in the Institute of Bioinformatics and Applied Biotechnology, Bengaluru, and then in the Jawaharlal Nehru University as a postdoctoral research scientist. So throughout my research career, I developed a special interest and developed my skills and expertise in precision oncology through data science methods using multi-omics data. So right from my PhD years, I mentored several students, and I treat that as a tremendous privilege to work with some of the bright young minds in the past and also in the future, hopefully. So I wish and hope you all enjoy as much as I do in this partnership between Amity Jaipur and Pine Biotech. So that was a very concise view of my background and research interests. So now I would want to briefly speak about one of my research. Can the participants please mute their respective mics? Thank you. So I would want to briefly speak about one of my research projects on precision oncology. So I think you would all now have a very clear view or introduction to what is precision oncology from the previous presentations, but I would try my best to do my part. So wait, how do I go forward? Yes, okay, great. Yeah. So I chose to talk in this project actually mainly because this study utilizes only publicly available data, and no other data were generated as a part of this project, and only several layers of multi-omics data analysis were performed on this project to yield a very good publishable results. So so again, I hope this project and hearing about the details of this project will help you to broaden your own scientific curiosity using publicly available data. So so we all know that cancer is the leading cause of disease deaths worldwide. So for such a dreadful disease and for so long, we do not have very good treatment regimes. Conventional therapy cancer treatments have relied on drugs that are just marginally more toxic to cancer cells than compared to normal cells. Yes, that's good. Than compared to normal cells. This is a problem because on an average, only 25% of the oncological patients actually respond to cancer drugs. In comparison, about 80% of the patients respond to popular painkillers. So the solution to this problem is precision oncology, where the treatment strategy is designed based on the ability of the patients who are likely to respond to specific cancer therapies. Okay, yes, okay, great. So what happened is we used this data. This data is from a study which grafted tumor cells from the cancer patients and then subjected those tumor cells to next-gen sequencing techniques. And the information about the gene expressions, somatic mutations, and epigenetic variations were extracted and tabulated. This tabulated data is what is available in the public database. And thanks to Dr. Harpreet for giving an intro into patient-derived xenograft models. So these mouse models, these tumors, which are characterized, are then grafted into immunosuppressed mouse. So this mouse is what we call as patient-derived xenografts. And these mice are administered several cancer drugs. And then for each and every cancer drug situation, the tumor's response to their respective drugs are documented in the form of volume of the tumor's response and whether the disease is stable or whether the disease is progressively getting worse. So such a tumor response is also available along with the molecular tabular form that I already told you. So this wealth of information, which molecularly characterizes the tumor cells and also records their response to treatments, are huge. This comes only once in a generation or so. So such a wealth of data generates a different kind of plethora of research questions. So our interest in using this particular data was to find out whether this mouse model will be able to, whether using this mouse model, whether we will be able to design and implement machine learning predictors to predict tumor responses to different treatment regimes. So why do we need to do this? As I mentioned, because of the efficacy of the cancer drugs, which is strongly patient dependent, and only 25% of the cancer drugs actually respond to the drugs. So the need of the hour is to actually accurately predict which patient will respond to the specific treatment response. So such a data and such an analysis, carry out such an analysis on cancer patients is not possible. So that is why we are resorting to the patient-derived xenograft mouse models. Then how did we do this? We built machine learning models that learns from the data of these gene expression profiles and copy number variation profiles and the somatic mutation profiles, which are already tabulated, and then tries to link that with the tumor's response to actual treatments. So this was done for breast cancer and colorectal cancer for the test cases, and for 26 different treatment regimes that we studied. So what did we find actually? So we found two important things. One is there's a traditional method of actually finding single gene which is responsible for the cancer disease, and to use this gene as a biomarker for treatment response also. So we actually showed or demonstrated that such a practice of traditionally using single gene marker for treatment response is not a very valid practice. So we included multiple genes so that the machine learning model can learn the information from multiple genes, and then that improved the prediction considerably well. And in addition to using either of one molecular profile, like you do either RNA sequencing, or you do either somatic mutation profiles, or you do copy number variation profiles. So when we combine and let the machine learning model learn from all these three different molecular profiles, our prediction to whether the model or classifier, our prediction, our ability to accurately predict whether the tumor will respond to a particular treatment increased tremendously. So this is what we saw. So all this information and all this publication was possible mainly with using publicly available data and nothing else, nothing more. So such a data, if you come across such an inspiring data, you should also ask several research questions from this data, and I believe a very good data and very well generated data will kindle a lot of curiosity, scientific curiosity in whoever gets their hands on the data. So now I would want to provide you a sample of how the lessons involving coding are organized in the OmicsLogix platform. So I think you have taken a lot of information from my predecessors and from those who spoke before me. So I'm going to keep it extremely short. So the courses involving coding are organized and directed specifically towards students who have completed the respective introductory courses in the particular coding languages. So all the courses that I listed here, or so just a screenshot of available, few of the available courses, courses have the following structure in their part. So what is that structure? For example, the organization includes what analysis are we doing, and why are we doing this analysis, and what do we expect to learn from such an analysis, and finally, how to do this analysis using coding. So we give you blocks of codes that also include several explanatory comments at each step, so it becomes very easy for you to follow. And finally, what output is generated from performing such an analysis. And what you also are not seeing after this is you would have interpretation of this plot or interpretation of such an analysis that relates to the biological question that we have in hand, and also several examples and exercises and homeworks that will test your skill and broaden your understanding of using such a coding practices to generate multi-omic data analysis or data analysis of any data. So that concludes my introduction to coding lessons in OmicsLogix, and I hope you will enjoy using these services, and and learn much more than what we have already demonstrated to you. And good luck to every one of you. And I hand over the podium to Ms. Sonalika.
Thank you, Dr. Raghav, for this wonderful overview, and thank you, Dr. Nidhi, for having us, giving us this opportunity to interact with the students. I hope that we did not overwhelm them. We just wanted to showcase that this can be done easily with the experts and with our help and with all the resources that we put together. And we demonstrated that in a short period of time, we can learn about these advancing technologies and apply them in real life science research. Now, I would like to ask Sonalika to maybe conclude the session, and we will be hoping to meet with you all soon to discuss the research fellowship program in less. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. And thank you so much, Dr. Raghav, for sharing the insights about your research project as well. And thank you, Dr. Nidhi, for letting us have this wonderful session today and giving us the opportunity to discuss about big data analytics, research, and training. We are all very much excited to get you all started. And it was nice to see such a good response. And we'll just send out the details of how you have to specifically begin with. So what we have recommended, I'll just again quickly revise. The first thing is that you all have to sign up. The second thing is that you all have to update your profiles. And then the third thing is that you have to get started with the basic training. The two courses that we recommended, the first one is Introduction to Bioinformatics, and the second one is Bytes and Molecules. And then we would be proceeding further with the intermediate and specialized trainings and research projects. Now I have received the registrations in the forms as well, and also the sign-ups. It's good to see instant progress. Now I have also invited the registrants to the Slack channel group. So you all can find an invitation of the Slack channel in your Gmail accounts. So you just click on that invitation and it would redirect you to Slack, and you just need to download the channel if you have not ever downloaded Slack and join the group. So that way we are just going to communicate directly and tell you what the next steps are going to be. And now I would just pass it on to Dr. Nidhi.
Thank you, Sonalika. First of all, I'd like to thank Dr. Harpreet and Dr. Raghavendra. It was really great and wonderful to see your research and your area of expertise. And I hope now the students, they actually know that what they are into and what they can learn getting in collaboration with you, and what they could expect the outcome of this collaboration. I'm really enlightened a lot, and I'm really thanking you all for presenting in such a wonderful way that the students actually know what is actually the outcome of the work they can do, and how they can learn everything step by step. So I'm really grateful and that you all accepted this invitation to present your work and make students learn what actually bioinformatics is all about. As most of the students, they themselves don't know what actually it is, and in what area we can move, and how we can actually go for data analytics by going for these kind of courses, and in bioinformatics, how they can proceed in bio data analytics. So it was really wonderful knowing your research area, Dr. Harpreet and Dr. Raghavendra. Thank you for accepting our invitation. Thank you, Sonalika, and thank you, Dr. Mohit, for collaborating with us and proceeding with this MOU. And with this, I think we can sign off and we can say a thanks on a good note that we're collaborating further. Yeah.
Now, before we sign off, can we just take a photograph of this wonderful session that we had?
Yeah, definitely.
So,
why not? Sure, of course. You
everyone, can you all switch on your cameras? It would be very nice.
Yeah, all the students who all are there, please switch on your cameras so we can have a group photograph. Yeah, I suppose they all because it's nearly the time, so they might have been moving. So that could be the reason that they're not switching on their cameras.
It's perfectly fine, ma'am. Thank you. It was nice to meet you and everyone today.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you all.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Very
Thank
much.
you, everyone.